Chapter 3 Prankster's Paradise. Wow! Sora exclaimed as soon as he arrived in the next world. An amusement park! Beneath the night sky, there was a Ferris wheel, a merry-go-round, a roller coaster racing by directly overhead, and strings of flags and little sparkling lights decorating the grounds. He saw plenty of other things that looked fun too. Sora had been to all kinds of worlds, but this was his first time in a bona fide amusement park. Suddenly, he wanted to just run around the whole place. He started to take off, but he was stopped by a familiar voice. That Pinocchio! He must have his poor father worried sick. Hey, is that Jiminy? He looked around and finally spotted Jiminy's diminutive figure in his trademark silk hat, sitting on some steps. The palm-sized cricket had stayed in Sora's pocket on his previous travels and provided all sorts of advice. Still, that little fella's some miracle. Imagine Mr. Geppetto's wooden puppet brought to life by the Blue Fairy. She made his wish for a son come true because he's given so much happiness to others. Now Pinocchio needs me to guide him and be his conscience. So maybe one day he can be real. Well now, let's not get ahead of ourselves, Jiminy. First, you gotta go find Pinocchio. Jiminy mumbled to himself as he got to his feet. Hey, Jiminy! Sora called to him. What's up? The cricket spun around at the voice. He looked up at Sora, then cocked his head to one side in confusion. Who are you? You shouldn't be here, young man. What? Jiminy didn't seem to recognize Sora at all. Are you okay, Jiminy? Sora asked, startled. The cricket placed a hand under his chin and thought for a moment. Huh? You mean you've heard of me? Well, I'll be. The name Jiminy Cricket's already spread far and wide. Sora had no idea his real name was Jiminy Cricket. Really? You feeling all right? It's me, Sora. A bit exasperated, Sora bent over and peered into Jiminy's face. The cricket was still baffled. Sora, you say? Gosh, I don't think I recognize ya, but the name does have a familiar ring. Both Jiminy and Sora fell into thought. Now that I think about it, Yensid did say something about this. In the sleeping worlds, real time does not flow. Unless one restores the world by waking it from its slumber, it will stay locked in a dream forever. Thus, you may encounter familiar faces, but they are just figments of the dream. In actuality, they are sound asleep, trapped within a world that is also sleeping. What's more, whilst someone may no longer dwell in the real version of a world, dreams may paint a fuller picture and restore what seems to be missing. When Yensid was explaining, Sora didn't really get it, but this was probably the type of situation he was referring to. The real Jiminy wasn't trapped in this world. He should be with the king and the others, meaning the Jiminy here now was a figment of the world's dream, not the Jiminy he knew. Oh, okay. What's that? I can't hear ya. Right, it's very nice to meet you, Jiminy. Sora greeted the Jiminy of this world again. When he did, Jiminy theatrically swept his silk hat off his head and bowed. Well, sure, the feeling's mutual, Sora. Though they were just meeting for the first time, the two of them shared a smile like they had known each other for ages. You can't fool me, Jiminy said with a smile. You still think we know each other, and you've just about got me thinking it too. He replaced his hat. Perhaps some of the links in his chain of memories remained within him even in this dream world. That reminded Sora that there was something he was curious about. Oh yeah, so how come you said I need to get out of here? Oh yes, this is a terrible place. Boys here are allowed to wreck things and loaf around to make jackamules of themselves, Jiminy said as he turned to face the amusement park. Jackamules? But this place looked like so much fun. Did Jiminy really mean that? Ah, poor lost Pinocchio. He wandered in here on my watch, the cricket stated dejectedly. But then he clapped his hands as he made a realization. That's right. That's where I must have heard your name, Sora, from my friend Pinocchio. He knows me? But how? Sora asked. Jiminy elaborated. He said that a fella in black clothes told him to play a trick on you. Black clothes? Bet it's that guy with the silver hair. If I don't find Pinocchio, he'll turn into a donkey like the rest of the boys. Right, then let me help you find him, Jiminy. Sora couldn't let Pinocchio transform into a donkey. Really? I'd be grateful, but how in the world do you know Pinocchio? the cricket asked curiously. If Sora and Jiminy didn't know each other in this world, it was strange for him to be able to recognize Pinocchio. Sora couldn't come up with a good response. Just then, he spotted Pinocchio walking through the amusement park. Hey, over there! I see him! Jiminy leaned in where Sora was pointing and confirmed that he was right. Gosh, that is Pinocchio! All aboard, Jiminy! Sora prompted, and the cricket sprang onto his shoulder like always. At least that hadn't changed between the normal world and this one. Take it away! Roger that! With Jiminy atop his shoulder, Sora raced down the steps, but... Dream Eaters! His path was blocked by monsters. Well, I'll be. I've never seen anything like these fellas before. They're dangerous, so you'd better hide, Jiminy. If you insist. The cricket dove into Sora's pocket. Okay, here we go. His keyblade in hand, Sora charged toward the Dream Eaters. Meow was alongside him, of course. Fighting among all the rides and buildings of the amusement park was a bit difficult, but Sora kicked off the walls to give his attack some extra punch. Meow! Meow ran around fighting off the nightmares as well. Gosh, you're pretty strong, Sora. Jiminy poked his head out of the pocket, holding down his silk hat so it didn't get knocked loose. Hey, I told you it's dangerous, Jiminy! Sora ran toward the center of the amusement park where Jiminy was, defeating Dream Eaters along the way. Pinocchio! There you are! Sora and Jiminy exclaimed together. Pinocchio turned around toward them curiously. Pinocchio, it's not safe for you here. Listen to Jiminy and go back to... Before Sora could finish, Pinocchio transformed into a Dream Eater. Oh my! Jiminy cried as Sora looked around. Another group of Dream Eaters had them completely surrounded. Pinocchio had really been a nightmare in disguise. Only one way to solve this problem. You'd better keep out of sight, Jiminy. But Pinocchio... Don't worry. Sora rushed into the pack of Dream Eaters yet again. Once he had finished off the last one, Jiminy leaped down from his pocket. Where could that Pinocchio have gone off to? He walked around the nearby area again. Pinocchio, I'm not angry with you, honest, so just come on out. Up there! Sora spied Pinocchio on top of a tall tower. All the way up there? Jiminy sighed. How are we even supposed to reach him? We'll have to take the roller coaster, I suppose. Jiminy didn't sound thrilled by the idea, but Sora certainly was. Can we? He'd ridden trains in the gummy ship before, but never a roller coaster. If we don't, we won't be able to reach Pinocchio, said Jiminy as he looked up at the tower. Sora did have one concern, though. You think riding the roller coaster will turn me into a donkey, too? Well, you aren't goofing around, so I doubt it. Yeah, I guess I'm not, huh? Sora remarked happily, marching over to the roller coaster platform. Wait for me, Sora. Oops, sorry, Jiminy. Once the cricket had climbed inside his pocket, Sora took off running with glee. Remember, we aren't playing around here, Sora. Jiminy admonished him from his jacket. I know, we're doing this to save Pinocchio. I sure hope you're gonna be all right. Huh? Did you say something, Jiminy? No, it's nothing. Sora ran up the steps to the roller coaster platform. Okay, here we go, he cried, jumping aboard. Yahoo! They could see the sea from the roller coaster and the big round moon overhead. The night breeze felt nice. Sora, if you don't remember what you have to do... Jiminy stuck his head out from the pocket, holding down his hat to keep it from getting blown away. Huh? You'll turn into a donkey! Don't worry, look, there's Pinocchio! With a big jump from the roller coaster, Sora landed atop the tower where Pinocchio was, while Jiminy hopped out of his pocket. Gee, Pinocchio, how'd you manage to get up here? Jiminy worriedly hopped over to Pinocchio. Come on, let's go home, Sora urged, but at that very moment, Pinocchio transformed into a Dream Eater again. Another imposter, Jiminy lamented with a sigh. But by the time Sora had his Keyblade ready, the Dream Eater had disappeared. There! See him walking? What? Sora ran over to the edge of the tower, then pointed out Pinocchio, who was heading toward a big tent with a clown's face on it. Well, sure, if that's really him. Don't give up, Jiminy, Sora chided. Come on, let's go! Sora picked up the weary cricket on his palm, then put him in his pocket again and jumped down from the tower. Full of energy, he set off after Pinocchio's trail and looked up at the tent. Maybe there's something going on inside. There were several brightly colored posters on the poles in front of the tent. Maybe it's a circus? I've never seen one of those before either. That Pinocchio worrying me so, mumbled Jiminy from his pocket. Let's go, Jiminy. Sora stepped into the tent. The interior was covered in colorful fabric, and huge nets around the big round trampoline in the center stretched all the way up to the ceiling. Pinocchio! Sora and Jiminy cried out in unison as they spotted the wooden boy clinging to the netting. Jiminy! Help me, Jiminy! He'd noticed Sora and Jiminy from his perch on a platform near the top of the net, and he'd been cornered by Dream Eaters. Oh, my stars above! Jiminy cried. We've got to do something! Okay, I've got it covered! Sora jumped onto the trampoline and arrived next to Pinocchio on the platform in a single bounce. You're okay now, Sora reassured the trembling little boy, picking him up and jumping back down to Jiminy. Oh, Pinocchio, look at ya! Jiminy exclaimed when he saw what had happened to Pinocchio. He had the ears of a donkey, and there was a tail sprouting from his rear end. I think for now, you two better get out of here, Sora advised them, and Pinocchio and Jiminy quickly ran toward the exit of the tent. All right, bring it on! The Dream Eaters were bouncing around on the trampoline, and Sora jumped in with them to take them out one after the other. Fighting on a trampoline was kind of fun. There was even a swing overhead. Sora took hold of the swing with one hand, then dropped down on a Dream Eater on a platform to hit it from above. Is that all you got? Once the last Dream Eater was gone, Sora ran off after Pinocchio and Jiminy. But a corridor of darkness opened in front of them, and the silver-haired youth in the black coat stepped out. You again? Sora shouted. The young man didn't react in the slightest. Behind him, another black portal opened, and the one who emerged from it was... Xemnas? This is impossible! It was Xemnas, the leader of Organization 13 that Sora had once fought and defeated. Or so he thought. The silver-haired youth and Xemnas felt similar somehow. Maybe it was the black coats, or maybe it was the color of their hair. My, a hollow puppet that's managed to grow a heart. Just imagine that. A hollow puppet? Was Xemnas talking about Pinocchio? Pinocchio isn't anything like you nobodies! Sora couldn't help himself from shouting, but there was a question forming in his heart, and he asked it only a second later. But if Pinocchio could be given one, shouldn't you be able to have a heart inside you too? Xemnas burst into laughter. Maybe so. He turned away from Sora. However, do not forget that you yourself are not so very different from us, he said, looking back for a few seconds before he vanished back into the dark corridors. The silver-haired boy went with him. Sora pondered Xemnas' words for a moment, staring at the spot where the two had disappeared. I'm not so different from them? Is he trying to say that I'm like a nobody? Or does it mean something more? I don't get it. Hypocrite, you are the one who has made your heart a prison, even if you are not the prisoner. Sora recalled what the silver-haired boy had said back in Quasimodo's world. I'm like the guys from the organization? Other prisoners in my heart? What does all this mean? And hollow puppets. Oh yeah, Pinocchio! Sora went back to tracking him and Jiminy down. When he stepped out of the tent, he didn't see any sign of them. Hello? He called, and that moment, one of the stars overhead began to shine brighter and brighter, until it was almost blinding. Sora shut his eyes against the brilliant light. When he eventually reopened them, standing before him was a winged pixie wearing a blue dress. The Blue Fairy. You must be Sora. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sora couldn't help but stand up straighter as he replied. I'm afraid that I have grave news. Good Geppetto went off to look for Pinocchio, and he was swallowed by a whale named Monstro. What? Sora had met Geppetto once before. He even knew about Monstro. Geppetto had been swallowed by the great whale in the past too, but that didn't mean he wasn't still worried. Have you told Pinocchio and Jiminy about it yet? Yes, and when I told them Geppetto was still alive inside the whale at the bottom of the sea, those two little ones ran off at once. They're very determined to save him. But that's crazy! I've got to find them! Sora turned away from the Blue Fairy and hurried for the cape. When he reached the promontory at the end of the cave, he saw the sea illuminated by the big moon. I'll be fine. I'm a good swimmer. Sora took a deep breath and dove into the water. While it was quite dark beneath the waves, a little bit of moonlight still filtered through the water. Sora remembered how he used to swim in the sea practically every day back on the Destiny Islands. I wonder what Riku's up to now. Just then, a sudden, powerful ocean current started pulling him along. Pinocchio! He saw Pinocchio running desperately on the seabed, along with Monstro bearing down on him. Wait, that isn't right. Is something chasing Monstro too? Monstro overcame Pinocchio and slapped one of the cliff walls with his huge tail. Then, he saw the gigantic Dream Eater shaped like a crayfish closing in on the whale from behind. Pinocchio! Jiminy! Sora tried his hardest to swim over to his friends, but in the next instant, Monstro swallowed the two of them down. Meanwhile, the big crayfish, Chill Clopster, cast a spell from the propeller-like tip of its claw. The spell froze the surface of the water with Monstro inside. Looks like I have to take care of this guy first. Sora swam over to the ice-encased whale and climbed atop him to face off with Chill Clopster. If it uses ice magic, then it must be weak to fire. Sora enchanted his Keyblade with flames and hurled it at Chill Clopster, but the Keyblade just bounced off its hard carapace and returned to him. It's too tough! Sora caught his Keyblade and ran behind the Dream Eater's abdomen for another attack. A fire spell this time. Unfortunately, Chill Clopster jumped out of the way. Whoa! Sora scrambled out of the way to keep from getting crushed, but he ended up tumbling right off Monstro's back. Before he could hit the icy surface of the ocean, though, Meow gave him a soft landing. Wow! Sora hurriedly jumped to his feet and scooped up Meow in his arms. You okay? The limp spirit wagged his tail feebly. I think we're gonna have to change it up. Sora gently set Meow on the ground, then glared at the Chill Clopster, which was now hovering in the air. If they wanted to put a dent in that sturdy shell, they couldn't use just any old attack. If that's how it's gonna be, Sora cast fire not on Chill Clopster, but instead on the frozen Monstro. The ice around the whale melted a bit. Next, Sora tried chopping at it with his Keyblade. Grow! Monstro regained consciousness and started wriggling free. Salty water shot out of the hole on his head and scored a direct hit on Chill Clopster. Meow! Sora hopped onto his spirit, who then jumped up and slammed down onto the crayfish. The great splash woke Monstro completely, enough to smash the ice around him and swallow down the Dream Eater. Sora and Meow hit the surface of the water at about the same time. That very moment, Monstro let out a big sneeze. After all, Chill Clopster made for a very strange meal. Whoa! Sora and Meow were flung out into the sea. He could hear the waves. It was such a familiar sound. Someone's licking my cheek. Pluto? No, this is... Meow! Sora had been lying unconscious on the shore until his spirit finally woke him up. He leaped to his feet, ready to hurry back into the sea, when he stopped. This was a dream world, not the real one. Soon, this world would be consumed by the darkness, and Monstro would be sent into the ocean between with Pinocchio and the others. Sora would meet Pinocchio in Traverse Town, and after that, he would find him along with Geppetto inside the whale's belly. This was a never-ending dream. If Sora didn't wake up, he wouldn't be able to return to the real world. When Sora gazed up at the moon hanging above the sea, a big keyhole arose there. He undid the lock and moved on to the next world. Lee sighed. I'm dreaming. I'm in the usual spot on top of the clock tower in Twilight Town, watching the sunset in the distance. In my hand is a cold, salty, sweet bar of sea salt ice cream. I'm eating it by myself, wearing my usual black coat. Hey, Axel, you haven't forgotten? Suddenly, my best friend Roxas is beside me. What? Roxas is eating ice cream too. You made us a promise. A promise? What kind of promise? I did? That you'd always be there, to bring us back, says Roxas. Yeah, I reply. Each reply makes me nervous. Roxas should be watching the sunset with me, but I can't tell where he's looking. It's unsettling. Got it memorized? Roxas points at his temple, mimicking me. Best friends forever, I answer. No one's beside me anymore. The dream is short, but it feels so long. And then I wake up. Axel opened his eyes in the laboratory of Radiant Garden, a room with computers in the back of what was once an office. He wasn't sure what was going on. He'd saved Sora, but what about after that? How did I end up here? Axel sat up slowly. His head was groggy. What happened? Roxas? He wasn't there, but Axel could see himself reflected in the glass of the lab. That's me. He spotted a few others collapsed in the same room. The ones in white lab coats were Evan and Ienzo. And then there was Dylan and Aeleus still in their former uniforms. Aeleus was starting to get to his feet with a groan. Why aren't they wearing the black coats? Wait, don't tell me. Axel checked his reflection in the glass again and looked for the marks. They were gone. The marks under his eyes were missing. We're people again. Oddly enough, he found the fact easy to accept. All 4 of the men behind had joined the organization here. Xehanort didn't count, so there were only 2 missing, Braig and 1 other. Isa? Axel, now Lee, softly said the name of his old friend. What the devil? Said Aeleus, the first to wake up. He was holding his head. Beats me. Lee replied with a smile as Ienzo also unsteadily got to his feet. What happened? Ienzo asked. If you don't know, then I don't either, Lee answered in his usual teasing manner. Ienzo frowned, clearly unsatisfied. Ienzo wouldn't have known about any of the events following his visit to Castle Oblivion as a member of the organization. Explaining it all would be a pain. Although, if he had retained his memories from the castle, things might get a little complicated. Ienzo's Nobody Zexion was destroyed because of me. I need some time to think to myself before we get into all that. I'm gonna go look for the others. I'll leave things here to you. Lee left the other 4 and walked to the room Ansem the Wise had once used as his office. But the wall was decorated with a portrait of Xehanort. It was littered with books, just as he remembered from when he'd snuck in here before. No one else was there. Lee stepped into the hallway and found a skateboard covered with dust and seemingly abandoned for some time. Don't go leaving this here, he muttered, then gave the board a small kick as he thought of its owner before walking off. No, really, what happened? I mean, I know I'm human again. I always thought when a nobody fades away, that's when they really and truly cease to exist. But I must have been wrong about that. I'm the human I used to be, I can tell. We didn't have separate personalities like Roxas and Sora. Why was that? I guess because Roxas was special. Or Sora was anyway. But special how, exactly? You've lost your hearts, they told us over and over. But I wasn't buying it. Not completely, at least. If I didn't have a heart, then what was that ache in my chest? Lee kept walking until the side entrance was up ahead. He could feel a faint breeze from outside. I doubt the other 2 are gonna wake up anywhere outside the castle. He stopped. Suddenly, he recalled a certain memory. It was back when I was a kid. Yeah, back before they called this place Hollow Bastion. The first time they called it Radiant Garden. I met someone, and we kinda ended up friends. I hung out with him because I wanted to be remembered by as many people as possible and live forever. What was his name? Lee couldn't recall, but the guy reminded him of someone else. Who was it? Memories from deep in Lee's heart were resurfacing. Maybe turning human again was why he was suddenly remembering things from his childhood? No, he should have been able to remember all along. At the same time, the doubts he'd been holding ever since he became human again were beginning to come into focus. Why did we go back to being human? Did something change us back? What is Xemnas up to this time? No, he must be Xehanort now. Sheesh, what a mess. Lee scratched his head. What am I supposed to do? He needed time to think it over. Lee slowly made his way back to the laboratory. Where are they? I've turned this castle upside down. Aeleus was putting books back in their former places on the shelves in the lab. Lee had to wonder if that was really necessary right now, but maybe it was just a soothing task for him at the moment. Ienzo was also organizing the desk. He seemed to be searching for something, but Lee couldn't quite tell. The other 2 were missing. Hey, are the other 2 out cold? Dylan and Evan are conscious again, but still stable. They're resting inside, stated Aeleus as he reshelved books. Gotcha. Well, I guess I'll give the castle grounds a sweep. Lee made to retrace his steps and leave, but Aeleus stopped him. Don't. If they were back, we would have found them by now. Lee scratched his head again and let out a little sigh. So, do you think they were blasted off to some other world or what? Ienzo spoke up from in front of the desk. I highly doubt it. When someone who has lost their heart is recompleted, they should return to the place where it happened. And if that world is unavailable for whatever reason, a refuge is made for them in the realm between, a world called Traverse Town. They would be sent there. As Ienzo explained, Lee walked to the interior of the lab and looked up at the likeness of Xehanort. Or perhaps... No, look, okay. Lee interrupted before Ienzo could elaborate. The fact is, we're here. We've been recompleted, right? So they should be here too, plain and simple. I agree, it is strange. Ienzo affirmed in a strained voice. What could their absence possibly mean? What a drag, Lee said with a big sigh, then turned to Ienzo and offered the only answer he'd found. Could they not have been recompleted at all? It wasn't completely beyond the realm of possibility. In fact, it actually made the most sense. Even if Ienzo did explain further, they'd still arrive at the same answer. The question is, what do I need to do now? Well, you see... forget it. Lee interrupted Ienzo before he could say any more. Then, after another look at the portrait of Xehanort, shifted his attention to some scribbled notes on the wall. Secrets of the world, secrets of the soul, and secrets of Kingdom Hearts, along with some faded words that had to be a password. Door to darkness. Door to darkness, huh? You know what? I'll bring him back myself, he said. Huh? How exactly? Ienzo exclaimed, which prompted Aeleus to slowly stand up and look at him too. Why do I always get stuck with the icky jobs? Lee complained, although he didn't sound particularly upset by the idea. He slowly made his way out of the room.